of Monday, June 19th, 2017. Let the record show that all commissioners are present. We'll go to the order of business. Mr. Kessel, is there any changes to the order of business?
President Decker, I would like to submit 3 changes for your review. The first one would be to eliminate 4A as an agenda item. That is something that we as staff can take care of. We do not need City Commission approval for that item. I'd like to request the addition, though, of another item for retirement plan signatures. You've all been provided with a supporting document for that item. So if you want, that item could replace the one we removed and become 4A. And then we'd also like to request a report be added on the infrastructure prioritization policy. And I can certainly do some introductory remarks, but then would like to have Engineer Kubis and Loretta, Ms. Marshik follow up.
Okay, are there any objections to changing the order of business, adding the authorization form as A, adding the report in E, or as adding this sponsor website authorization form as A, and then adding the report into the reports? Any objections?
No. Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The order of business is approved. Consent agenda, is there anything on the consent agenda that commissioners want to discuss? There's nothing to discuss. I look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to approve in a second. Go ahead and vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Consent agenda is approved. We only have one timetable item tonight at 5 o'clock, Convention and Visitors Bureau 2016 Annual Report. So we'll move into the non-timetable agenda. And first thing up will be this retirement savings plan, deferred compensation plan, authorization form.
Thank you, President Decker. What this form does is it allows staff to make changes to the retirement savings plans and deferred compensation plans that the City of Dickinson has set up with American Trust Center as our intermediary. Because these plans are administered by the city, but they are participated in with not just our employees, but those of the Park District, you'll notice that there are a couple of Park District employees on this signature authorization form. What it does is, again, it just allows them to make changes on the website on behalf of employees. And we also have a new employee that we've added as well, Miss Erin McMahon. So that's what we're requesting, is authorization to update the form and allowing access to the people that are listed on the form that you have in front of you.
Any questions for Mr. Kessel on this form?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion or questions for Mr. Kessel? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman? Aye. I'll get this right. Ms. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That motion carries. Moving on to item B, city attorney in-house versus contract. Mr. Kessel.
Thank you, President Decker. As I think some of you are aware, we've been going down the path of hiring an in-house city attorney. We've finished phase 1 of those interviews. We have a candidate that we have identified as somebody who we think could do the job. We currently are receiving services through Macoff Kellogg and, of course, Ms. Kripe. And she has submitted a contract to extend our current relationship beyond August, which is when the current contract would end. So what it means is the discussion with regards to having an in-house attorney versus a contracted attorney, we are looking for your input, feedback, and decision tonight on which way you would like to go. I've put together a little slide that shows some of the positives and some of the opportunities for both in-house and a contracted firm. From an in-house perspective, I like to believe that it lends to proactivity because they do attend not only executive and leadership team meetings, but they're available on a regular basis to help identify issues before they actually happen. Certainly some of that happens with a contracted attorney as well. With an in-house attorney, though, we have access to that individual on a more regular basis. I'll use a typical 8-hour day, where the contract is 3 hours in-house. It doesn't prevent Ms. Kripe from working out of house when she's in her office, but the in-house hours are about approximately 3 a day. It is a little less expensive to go in-house than it is to do by contract, but you have to acknowledge that if we do go in-house, that individual is just that. They're an individual. They don't have, if they're sick or if they're take vacation, we do not have coverage in their absence, and they have a limited specialty. So we recognize and have always carried some dollars in the budget to hire contracted attorneys if we need a specialty that they don't provide. So those are some of the limitations as well of in-house. And then on the contracted side, some of the positives, of course, are access to a firm. Ms. Kripe would be the primary, but she would also have access to other individuals in her firm who, of course, have different specialties that she could draw upon and ask questions of. And in her absence, Christina Wenka would be the number 2 and be able to provide coverage for any vacation or sick time that might need to be taken. It's not comparing apples to apples in terms of hours on site. So the office hours that are being proposed, as I mentioned before, are about 3 hours a day, but recognizing that there is work going on outside of office hours here in City Hall. It is more expensive than the in-house, and we also acknowledge that Ms. Kripe would keep a private practice going. So there would be some priorities. Her and I have talked a little bit about that to try and make sure that I better understand when we would be a priority and when other clients would be a priority. And a lot of that is based upon court dates and things such as that. I mean, I think that it's fair to say the city would have primacy unless there was actual court issues that would come up, and then those court dates would have primacy. So I'd like to answer any questions that you may have with regards to this decision, but because we have somebody waiting in the wings, so to speak, we are hoping for a decision this evening from the commission.
Any questions for Mr. Kessel?
Mr. President, Mr. Kessel, when would we expect this individual, if we hire him, to start?
Well, if we've only done round 1 of the interviews, so we do a second round, and if there was consensus that this individual would be the one we'd want to choose, he has stated that he could start in about a month.
A month, okay. Just looking at the comparisons, there's a couple things I would like to see where we have less expense for in-house. I think we need to see the expenses up to date with Ms. Kripe so we can compare how less expensive or how much more one way or the other. The limited specialty, I think I would like to see the resume of this individual to see exactly what his specialties are before we can, maybe he specializes in city law. Ms. Kripe has done a wonderful job for us. I mean, there's no doubt. We're very happy with that. But having an attorney in-house is, I think, for the employees when they have a quick question or something, it's pretty valuable. Mm-hmm. And so I'm kind of leaning towards, hiring an in-house if everything else matches up. If there's other things that our attorney cannot handle, we can always employ the firm that we currently have.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly agree with you, Commissioner Steiner. Right now, the contract, and that if we decide to go that route, what we've done in the past is we've put out a bid proposal and asked firms. Macoff Kellogg has been our choice lately. We did start with Ebeltoft Sickler and then made that transition. So I'm not sure if we go down that road, if you choose to go with a contracted attorney or not. But I can tell you that the proposed dollars are about $160,000 to provide a contracted attorney. I think that's pretty accurate, yeah. Which honestly is pretty competitive from a contractual basis based on what we've paid in the past. I'm certainly not going to argue that.
And right now, Ms. Kripe, you're available outside of the office hours via email or?
Correct, Commissioner. I recently started doing a new calendar that I'm sending out to the leadership group, and it has my cell phone number, my direct line at Macoff, as well as they have my city email and my Macoff email. And those are all programmed in, so.
I had an opportunity to sit in on the interviews. We had some good candidates. One definitely stood out among all the others. Somebody that has at least a 10-year local connection, which I thought was important. Somebody that isn't going to have to relocate to the area, somebody that's lived here through the full cycle of the buildup and the pullback. Good experience, very articulate, well-rounded. I guess my hope would be that just like when we hired other key employees, that each of you would have a chance to meet with this individual before we'd make that final decision so that you could weigh in on it as well. I'd agree with Mr. Steiner that having in-house would give employees more access. And like I said, I have confidence in the person that we interviewed. And I've sat in on these interviews for this position a couple of different times. And this one has definitely stood out, probably even more so than ones that we've had in the past. So I would be comfortable with going in-house versus contract. But again, it would be, I think, important for each of the other commissioners to have a chance to at least meet individually with this person and get a read on that.
And you said he's a 10-year local?
10-year local.
Yeah, see, that intrigues me. Right away, he knows the community. He knows what's expected. He knows how things work, so that's a plus for an in-house.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mrs. Trustum, Mr. Friedrich, questions, comments?
I guess for me, I'd like to see the comparison and what the cost is. I mean, I do like the fact that the contract attorney has a whole firm behind them if there's an issue, where they can rely on attorneys that maybe have a little more experience or experience, something similar. I'm not saying that I'm totally against an in-house attorney. It's just I want to know. I mean, if we're paying, are we talking $10,000 a year difference for a contract or $50,000 a year?
If you like, I can certainly address that.
Well, I mean, just kind of get me an idea I'd like to know kind of where we're at there. Because you got to realize benefits, their time off, their, that all costs money. And then how much would we still probably have to spend for contract attorney in that time period?
And I'm not going to get the numbers exact, but our wage, or the grade that this position fits in, starts around 78,000, and midpoint, I believe, is around 90,000. So I'd assume that anybody we'd hire would fit within that area. And then we generally use 30% as a benefit factor to add on top of that, so you can get a better idea of true total cost. We have budgeted, I believe, $20,000 a year for the last 8 years for that limited specialty work. We have only drawn upon that on rare occasions. It has happened, but it doesn't happen often.
I guess I would like to mention, thank you, Ms. Kripe, for everything you've done for the city of Dickinson. I think you've done an excellent job, and I know I have never doubted that I wasn't getting great legal advice, so thank you for that. As far as my opinion goes, I think there's a lot of incentives to both sides, and I think you guys did a great job of bringing those out. If we do look to going to in-house, I want the commission to consider looking at an appointed position. I've done a lot of research in council manager government, and I think it's important that we look at maybe possibly appointing that position so that we know that they will be not only responsible to the city but to us, and that they won't have to balance back and forth in a way that's unfair to one side or the other. It's very common in most city governments, so I think it's something we should look into.
I guess I would like to get an opportunity to meet with the candidate. I think that's a general feeling here, that everybody would like to meet with the candidate before we give you a recommendation, which way to go.
It's,
I think we can do that. I'd have to advertise a meeting, since you're asking for all of you to meet him. That would be an open
But
meeting.
why can't we meet them separately?
Not more than 2 of you.
Right.
You know,
And
any,
that's what you've done in the past, is Sarah and I met with candidates together. Scott met with candidates. Jason met individually with candidates when we were filling Linda's position.
Yeah.
It was no big deal.
yeah, we just have to make sure we notice it, and that won't be a problem.
So we can't meet individually with the candidate? If
Yeah,
we
you-
don't
You-
discuss it amongst the commission?
You can meet individually, but I'd still have to notice it as a meeting, because more than 3 of you would be
But
meeting
we
with.
never noticed with Mrs. Carlson.
Would we need the meeting notice if you just get us a resume?
No, certainly not. If you're just provided with,
That's all I would need is a resume.
okay.
I'd like to see the contract as well that Ms. Cripe submitted. That would be helpful.
You can provide that. You could email that contract to all of us, right? You could email that contract to all of us, and
I can submit both the contract and the resume
Resume.
and such.
I would like to meet personally with them, so. I think in the same setting we had with
And I
Mrs.
already have, and
Yeah.
Carson doesn't feel like he needs to, so that only leaves 3. So if,
Yep.
I don't think you have to notice it if Jason's gonna meet individually.
I would prefer meeting
Yeah,
the person, I mean,
I would agree.
yeah.
so.
Okay. Would you prefer those to be, because we have one more round of interviews that we had scheduled, or we're going to do, depending upon your decision this evening. So we can just simply invite the rest of you to that meeting, so that you can be present during that last and final
Would,
interview.
will there be more than one candidate making it to the second round?
No.
Well, then I guess. Then it'll be pretty simple, so.
Right. you're
We
not-
could just, yeah, that's what my question was, is, I mean, if there's not a second candidate, then, yeah, I mean, I can sit in on the next interview, or we can.
Okay.
uh,
So what
something
we'll do
different.
then is look for a time that works for everyone, and then we'll set that up. Should take an hour, I'm gonna guess.
Okay,
And I won't need to set in on a second
Right.
round of interviews.
Okay,
sounds good.
thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to item C, the Rock Commercial on-sale, off-sale liquor license transfer. Mr. Kessel?
Thank you, President Decker. What we have is the Rock has changed the ownership of their board. 2 owners were removed from that board. They now have 5 members who are members of the board, and 3 of those 5 actually own stock in the corporation themselves. Because of that corporate governance change, that triggers the transfer of the commercial on and off sale license that has to be approved by the city commission. Our police department did provide background checks on all the 5 remaining board members, and all did pass. So from a compliance standpoint, I believe they are in compliance pending your approval of that transfer.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Kessel on the Rock Commercial on-sale, off-sale liquor license?
I'd make a motion to approve that transfer.
I'd second that.
We have a motion to approve transfer with a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Transfer is approved. Next up is item C, I guess. It'll be HR manual. Mr. Kessel? Oh, I guess Ms. Kripe.
Mr. President, this would be first read presentation of ordinance number 1637, and it is the culmination of our work on the HR manual. And Mr. President, you're obviously aware of the whole process. You sat in on the subcommittee, so I know it's been a long time coming. What I presented as far as the memo and agenda, there's a red line that's attached, and that shows all the changes. And then the ordinance, I just did a clean copy of it because it's very hard to read with all of the markup. So you have both so that you can see. There are a couple changes that need to be made before the second reading, because when we were going through the HR review, in the meantime, the fire department was ready to move to their 24-hour schedule, and those changes didn't, they weren't incorporated into these code changes. So in the red line, it looks like they're deleted, which is not supposed to be there. So we'll get those reinserted on the second read. And that's just their 24-hour scheduling language from that ordinance last year. Other than that, it looks like a lot of changes, but a lot of it was just kind of clean. Some of it was just cleanup and taking care of things that, you know, we don't have a human resources committee anymore, so removing things like that, updating language for kind of present day issues that we're facing, and so forth. Some of the bigger issues that were at one point discussed, but I just want to kind of go over, were at one point there was discussion about changing the role and function of the Civil Service Commission, and that is not happening. They are still going to review all of the job descriptions and changes to the HR manual, and then they will hear grievances that are suspensions or above under the code. So written reprimands will only be heard by the city administrator, but if there's a suspension, demotion, or termination, those would go to civil service, and that's just for expedience sake. And we did change some of the investigations language. It's under paragraph 2.9 and some subsequent sections there. It's a little more clear about some prohibited conduct, and then gives employees some different options if they want to report a situation, whether there's some situations that might be regarding violence, and there's some harassment type situations where before everything had to go through the police department, and there was no qualifier for what would happen if the city administrator was the offending party. And so recognizing recent labor law standards that you have to have that if your CEO or your top person in your company is the offending party, you have to have some kind of mechanism that employees can report. And so this does give employees some flexibility to talk to either the city administrator, HR, they can contact, I believe, the city attorney as well, depending on their level of comfort, just to try and make it a little more comfortable for someone who needs to report something. There's a slight change to the vacation policy. Right now, the code says that you can't accrue more than 240 hours as of December 31st. And there was the practice was a little bit different, trying to give a little grace period to use some days. And now what'll happen is every December 31st, if there's any hours over 240 on books, they're lost. But you can carry 240 and accrue all your normal vacation throughout the course of the next year and use that without burning into your 240 hours. So they can still carry that amount as long as they'd like. If an employee does retire or is terminated or quits in the middle of the year when they have more than 240 hours, the cap would be at 240 hours for payout on vacation. Again, there's some HIPAA language added under paragraph 12. We added some language. It used to be a cell phone policy, and now because of all the tablets and everything, we have a mobile device policy. So again, just some updates there on getting things more technologically updated. Same thing on that paragraph 13.10, you'll notice there's a lot of red inserted language, and that's all from IT's recommendations on mobile passwords to ensure that we don't have any security breaches and data breaches. Some of those charts look like they changed. The one under 29.08.04050, which is the employee status and classification plan, didn't change, but it was relocated within the code. So you'll see that a little bit later down, further down. And then not a lot else in that section. We did add some language for paid break times to be clear that if people are working certain shifts, that we need to be in compliance with the labor laws and providing paid breaks and then unpaid lunch breaks depending on shift lengths and when those breaks are occurring so that it's consistent across departments. There's also, as a result of some federal legislation, the insertion of the nursing mother breaks. And so that's kind of the bulk of it. And then again, you'll see under 16.6, there's a little bit of change to the overtime compensation. At one point, it was daily overtime in certain departments, and the entire city will be shifting to weekly overtime, which is more the standard for what we see in a typical employment practice. So it'll be that 40 hours per week. And then again, you'll see some cross-out language there for that fire suppression personnel. That will be added back in. That was that ordinance from last year, late last year. I think that covers most of the major changes. Again, no change to the civil service role or purpose, but there was some changes to what goes in front of them. And then you'll notice, I guess the other probably major change to bring up is the sick leave bank, which employees can utilize if they have run through all of their own personal leave and they opted in. There was some discussion at a number of levels in this process that, you know, sometimes when someone's filling out their initial paperwork, they don't necessarily understand what the sick leave bank is. People who start younger with the city don't understand the value of it. And so there's going to be a one-time opt-in for all current city employees during this next benefit plan election cycle for 2018. So at the end of the year, any city employee will be able to opt in if they haven't already. And then for all future employees, they'll still have the opportunity when they onboard, and then they'll have 2 successive benefit periods that they can opt in to that program. So that's probably the other major change. And then we did limit the parties that can donate to the donate sick leave if there's a specific person requesting donated leave. And it's just to keep they can't drop below 20 days of leave, because that's the amount of time that any person needs to get to be able to make an application of the sick leave bank. So we don't want people donating all their sick leave, and then if they would need it, they don't have enough themselves to get to that part or get to the point where the sick leave bank is available to them.
On that sick leave bank, how'd your committee weigh in on that? Were they all in favor of that, or were some opposed?
The opt-in, or
Where you can donate sick leave to the bank for someone with an illness, so on.
mm-hmm.
What I am seeing is a lot of companies are getting away from that type of thing because some of the situations and problems that they cause with other employees and so on. I think we had an example ourselves here. So I'm kind of wondering about that. You know, I know the company I work for, they used to have it, they don't anymore. And their answer was that we're allowed to purchase the disability, short-term disability and so on. And that's really what it should be used for. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but maybe we should all take a look at this here, separate that one out and take a look at it at another time and so on. And just get the history of what companies are doing now on it, because I think you're going to find that a lot of them are cleaning it up that way.
Yeah.
And of course, the bottom line to me would be how most of the employees feel about it.
I don't think we posed that specific question. So to be fair, I don't know, I wouldn't feel comfortable saying exactly how they would feel. No one talked about getting rid of it. And I think the main reason kind of through the course of the last year that I was involved in discussions, the city has looked into providing some disability policies, but they are, I think, cost prohibitive at this point. And so that hasn't been done. So that was kind of the solution, was to leave the sick leave bank in place. But I don't know that we asked the specific question if they want to continue with the donated leave. I understand what you're saying, that can cause issues. And I actually spoke with Ms. Dominick about the process for allowing someone to ask for donated leave, where in the past the city has allowed the person to, or the city has included that person's name in the request. And I had some concerns about HIPAA and requiring the person's name to be disclosed if they have a medical condition or asking for leave. So going forward, and it's already been implemented, that the employee can share whatever they want. That's entirely their prerogative. But the city won't say who the donated leave is for anymore. It's just that an employee has requested it. And if that employee wants to, hit reply all and say, it's for me, this is what's going on,
Right.
they're more than welcome to.
There might be some pressure there if an employee does not want to donate and, their name's out there. It'd be interesting if you had a vote on it where they didn't have to identify. And if it's a big percentage where they're all okay with it, I'm fine. Big percentage the other way, I think we need to address it.
Commissioner Steiner, Ms. Nominock has been tasked with looking into some short-term disability, as you've suggested. We don't have the results yet from that research. We're hoping to have that before budget season so that we can make a decision similar to the one that you've suggested. I personally am in favor of short-term disability, but
At this time, we do not provide short-term disability.
we don't provide that we don't pay for that as the
Okay.
city of Dickinson as one of our benefits.
I think you'd be surprised how inexpensive that is for a group. I would, take a look at, like I said, let's take a look at that also. If we have to offer that as a benefit to make it a little smoother, I'd be in favor of that, because as a group, it's pretty reasonable.
Hopefully, we'll have that information
Yeah,
soon.
that's a nice benefit for it.
And the HR manual went out to all employees as is right now with the markups and everything, or it's go out clean?
Both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you met as department heads, and each department reported back, they were okay with everything?
We actually, all the executive team members have had access. We presented at a leadership team, and we had 3 individual employee members, I'll call them, that negotiated on behalf of a segment of the population. And they've been going back and forth throughout the whole process, talking about these issues. So there's been significant input from employees, not just from a standpoint of responding, but also in the creation of some of these policies.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Kripe or Mr. Kessel on the HR manual?
Just a couple other things to highlight. Benefits that were added were bereavement pay, which previously if a city employee had a death in the family, they would take either vacation or, I don't know if they were allowed to take sick leave, previous sick leave.
They were.
Okay. So they would take leave to address that, but each employee now has up to 9 days per year of bereavement leave, and they can use 3 days per incident. And so those are just extra days that if they have to deal with that, they have those available. There's also the tuition reimbursement program that was added in, so you'll see that as well. And then I think that does cover the vast majority. Am I missing anything, Shelley?
How we're defining the dollar.
Shift differential. So there is one change to shift differential, which will affect a small number of employees, but we think we figured out a way to try and address that. But it was previously that shift differential went from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. where they get employees get an extra $1 per hour if their shift falls within that time frame, and that was moved back from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And that's because it just affected more employees that way in a positive way, but there was some negative effect to certain employees, and so those employees can't switch their shifts around to a 6 to 6 schedule because of other employees who are switching at the same time, and it would cause logistical issues. So the city administrator does have the power to grant shift differential to on a case-by-case basis with that if there's a need by department. So it wouldn't be an individual, it would be a department that would get that if need be. So just to address certain situations. But
Okay.
there's a lot in here other than that, so you guys can take a look through everything. And
Are we expecting to act on this tonight?
no,
Well,
it's just a first read.
Yeah, the first reading tonight, so.
There's a lot
Yeah.
here.
Any other questions or comments for Ms. Kripe or Mr. Kessel? Hearing none, this is the first reading, so we'll have a public hearing. I would open it up to the public. If anybody has any concerns about, this is ordinance number,
Excuse me. It's 1637.
1637, okay. If you have any concerns or questions on ordinance number 1637, please come forward, state your name, and express your concerns with ordinance 1637. Seeing no one from the public, we'll close the public hearing. And I would look for a motion to either approve or disapprove the first reading of ordinance 1637.
Move to approve.
A motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Any questions, comments?
I just say there's been a lot of eyes on this. There are committees, civil service, and this is not the final draft. There will still be changes. They'll become forthcoming. They'll give us an opportunity to reread through this yet again before we get to our next meeting.
Second reading will be July 10th, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So
We have time.
we have some time. Hearing no more questions or comments, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. First reading passes. And now we have a timetable. We're a little late. I apologize. But we have Ms. Thiel.
Well, good evening. Thank you. I'm a little bit behind. I usually come here the first part of June. Scheduling prevented me from doing that. And so we have typically been mailing out the annual reports to everybody, and we have it on our website also. But what I'll do is this year go ahead and we'll putting it up here. So generally what I'll do is I'm recapping the last year of what went on. Some of the changes are a little bit harder to see here, but one of the highlights that we experienced was the 100th celebration for the National Park Service, which was really a big boost for not only the entire state, but especially our area. We saw a lot of increased visitation because of that. The National Park Service saw an increase of about 35%, over 750,000 visitors over to the national park, both the north and the south units. So we benefited for that. Our occupancy was about flat. We were a little bit short in the first quarter or so, but we were up about 7% for the months of June, July, and August. So we were encouraged with that. We knew that that was due to some of that recreational tourism that was coming in. So there's also things in the community that have been happening. We've had the Fluffy Fields that has opened up east of town, and we're using that as one of our attractions coming into town, and we're using that also for people who are coming in and doing meetings, conventions, things to do as part of their programs with that. The Museum Center, of course, is undergoing changes over there, and we're very excited about the things that we'll be able to keep promoting over there. Our meetings for bookings and conventions are returning. We were suffering pretty much of a tough situation for a few years while there was such a high occupancy and some of the higher rates with that. The convention world and meetings has changed quite a bit, especially within the last 10 to 15 years. There's a lot of different reasons that go into that, but even statewide, a lot of our other companion CVBs are seeing quite a bit of differences of consolidation for conventions and meetings and such. So there's starting to be not as many, maybe a little bit bigger ones. So it's a large part of our industry, and obviously the hospitality industry includes quite a few partners. So our marketing, we do a variety of that. We'll always continue with a mix. We do some print ads. We did about 14 last year. We do state and national publications. And while we do that, we are often partnering up with the North Dakota Tourism Division. They do some co-op programming with some funds. Now, those are going to probably be reduced this next year, but because of their buying power and obviously because of what they put into research dollars, we know where to place those different dollars into what markets. So we also broke those into what we call the reader request card. So sometimes you get a magazine, you'll have a little card in there and you can circle for an ad or whatever. And so we'll get the names and addresses, and you can see that American Road 971 requests, and going down the line there, down to the Ultimate Outdoors, which went into the hunting market with that. We also do promotional awareness magazines. Now, we're not always able to get names and addresses from those, but we can't ignore those. Those are the ads that we put into the state tourism travel guide, the tour book, some newspaper inserts that we do with the co-op with their tourism division, Midwest meetings and such. So some of those we really don't get direct names, but we are in those. Online programs that I've mentioned before, those are increasing quite a bit. And again, we also partner quite a bit with the tourism division on that. So a few years ago, that wasn't even part of their marketing, but now we place ads with them on their homepage. And so we list and pay different ones that will feature the Museum Center, the Ukrainian Cultural Institute, the Dinosaur Museum. We subscribe to and place ads in their e-newsletters for both leisure and into the hunting markets. We did one last year that what was actually a first for the tourism division. We did a customized one in May. We did that on the National Park Service, but going back to our website because of the celebration. So it was pretty successful. So this year we did it with the Dinosaur Museum. So that was sent out, just customized, and that one was about $2,000. So you see we go into also the hunting with that, and featured trip ideas, amplified storytelling, and then different retargeting ads and search engine marketing. And there are all separate ad payments that we make. TripAdvisor, we had a homepage on that, and we follow that quite a bit for the local hotels and restaurants. Forum Communications, and they're a partner with the tourism division, so we'll do leisure ads and also hunting with that. And then we target into different places with Facebook advertising. We print about 35,000 visitor guides, and those are placed into the Highway Rest Area program and also sent out to a program with the tourism division for one fulfillment, and about 30,000 tear-off maps. And then we hand stuff approximately 600 hunting packets each year that are delivered out to the airport and out over to the different hotels. And people have to request those as they go up to the desk to ask for them. Other marketing, we partner with the tourism division for the sports shows. So they take our brochures to the ones that you see there, focusing into Minneapolis, and Milwaukee is quite a large one for that. We have a DVD that's displayed at the Hailstone Rest Area, and that we just changed here just a little while ago. It's the only one in the state at the rest areas. We have the billboard that's right outside as you're coming into town that's giving directions. We've changed that out once in a while. We provide what to do magnets and business cards to a lot of people, especially when we were looking at the people that were coming into town here that were new. There's a touchscreen kiosk out at the airport, and that will be giving travelers the opportunity to touch into different areas that they want, whether it's hotel or restaurants or even events while they're out there. Another thing we do is a qualified local lead program to the hotels. So when you saw the different reader listings from those magazines with the names and addresses, those hotels that wish to participate, they contact us, say, yes, we want to be part of it. We forward those names and addresses. That gives them an opportunity to make another touch point. We send out our information, and then they can also send those out to those consumers directly to try to bring them to their property. FAM tours, which are familiarization tours, and we work with the tourism division with that. And so they'll have writers that come in, tour operators and such. And so when they come into town, we'll take them around town. We may host them with a hotel stay. We may take them down to a place to eat and take them around town. So you'll see a lot of maybe Midwest bloggers or writers, but there's also quite a few that are international people that are coming in. In the past few years, we've done a partnership with Williston and also with Watford City. And so Amy Kruger, the director up at Williston, we've been making a trip out to the east, stopping at the radio stations and also the TV stations between Valley City, Jamestown, Fargo, Grand Forks, and such. And we get on, it's free airtime, and they let us tell about what's going on out west. And we've also co-opted with an ad that you can see in that bottom right down there between Watford City, Williston, and Dickinson. So we want to make sure that people are understanding that we were open for business out here. The website, of course, as you know, online has become one of the major parts of what we do. And so our website visits last year were up 7%. Our page views were up 3%. And the mobile device, and I think that's quite common right now, is actually increasing much more over desktop, which you see on your computer. So we were up 8% for that. And of course, then you see your tablets and desktops going down because of that. The top pages are the events, and a lot of people also use that locally. So that will be, you know, not really a surprise with that. The what to do, the shopping, the dining, the lodging, and we get those from the Google Analytics. And the top 5 states that are visiting our website that are listed there. And Minnesota, Illinois, and Texas has been quite consistent the past few years. And social media, of course, our Facebook is quite active. And we were up 21% last year, over the year with that before, and Twitter going up 11%. And then we've also had last year a TripAdvisor site that we paid for, and we had approximately 4,700 views on that last year.
Ms. Thiel, I have a question for you. On the Facebook sessions, could you just describe that a little bit? I'm not sure what it counts as a session, and then have you increased your Facebook posts?
Yes, actually, and that's a good question. Our sessions are through the analytics again, and those are when people are actually getting on there. Like, pretty much a session is the time that you're on there. And so you'll have page views in your website, but also for on the Facebook sessions, it measures it quite similar to that. What was the second part you had asked?
Increased your posting to
Oh, yeah, quite a bit. Julie's quite active with that, and so those have increased quite a bit. The other part of the social media now that we're increasing is the Instagram. And actually what we found is when we do the Facebook ads, when we've done the analytics and it will convert over to Instagram, people are much more active on the Instagram than they are the social media for Facebook. So we probably will be shifting some of that over much more heavily, because we'll take the photographs, and that's really what people like for the ones that want to take a look at the ads rather than your talking that's going on. We can gather much more of an audience through really good photography going into Instagram. We were very surprised with that, but that's something that we're going to increase with. So visitor services, approximately 7,200 people coming in throughout the year. And we have cards there. So we've had very positive comments on the cards for the staff. We just asked them, you know, to write something down, and then how they hear about us. The billboard is very popular. There's people are coming in. And then our information requests, and those will vary each year too, but we were up on the vacation request by 26% over 2015. Our hunting was down a little bit, but we did place less advertising in it. And then our guide was up quite a bit. Relocation packets, of course, had been going down, but I will tell you that we've had energy companies contacting us again. And so we have some of them that we are consistently providing for their workers, and that has changed now since the past 2 years with that. So our total requests were actually up by quite a bit, and some of that was due to our guide with the One Fulfillment through the Tourism Division program. Meetings and conventions. Now, when you take a look at the amount for the 23 meetings and conventions, that really is not probably a true number. There were many more, but there's a lot of them that the hotels and or other places will handle internally that don't tell us. But these are some of the ones that we deal with that may get media assistance, banners, name tags, you know, whatever it is, and placed on the calendar. So there's quite a few more that they just hold their own meetings, and we don't really find out about those. But you'll see some of the top ones for 2016 that we just list over there. And we've got some really nice ones coming back up. As I think you guys have just heard recently, we had the North Dakota firefighters here in town too. And we've got some really good ones coming up again this year. So that's been quite encouraging. We do a little bit of print advertising in our Midwest meetings, so we do that regionally. The other thing that's been new is that Julie is now creating videos for those different conventions. If they provide us photos, they can do that, and it's been used a lot of, as they come up, either to registration or during the meeting. So that's been new. We send out postcards that are always individually changed out each quarter, to probably close to 400 or 300 and some different organizations, state organizations. And then Constant Contact, she'll do that quarterly with emails to those groups too. And cold call selling. There's quite a bit of that that she also does. Then we're just listing some of the industry updates in construction, things that have opened up, things might have changed the name or a different franchise or may have closed or just things that have changed a little bit. You're going to see some of the industry revenue, the room counts. It was up a little bit over the year prior, and the Town Place up north had opened up. Occupancy rate was down just a little bit, but the biggest difference was the average daily rate. So you're going to see that going from 2015 at $103.15 down to the $75.18. So not a change in the amount, but of people that were at the lodging properties, but more so within that rate. So if you take a look at the 2% city collection, it was $361,479, and it was down 40% from the year prior. The hospitality tax was down also about 21%. Your gross revenue will be on there. The food and beverage will be a little bit different than what you may take on your regular 1%, but I also backed out that 1% lodging on there. But overall, for 16, be 108 million, that's 67,970, down about 25% on that. The event grant, and we've been administering that for approximately going on almost 20 years now. So you'll see in 16 we handled $80,000. You'll see how it was broke down between ones that are annual events or ones that are rotating. And then there's some that are given to the Sports Commission, which is a subsection actually of the grant. And then Rough Rider Days Fair and Expo for media expenses. And then also the block grant, which would have been First on First, and then prior to that, the 5 at Live. And then we set a little bit aside for local media for welcomes into town. So they have to fill out an application with that. And then you'll see the recipients off on the right there. The bottom left will also talk about what we did was North Dakota, Dickinson Parks and Recreation. We worked quite a bit with them. And we did do 2 large grants for them to bring in some of the baseball. And these are rotating ones for this. Will be the American Legion Central Plains. We don't get that very often. But these were 2 bids that we assisted with funding. So then you just see some of the different activities that we're involved with. The leadership program for the high school kids each year. Quality of life presentation that the chamber did. We're part of the Old Red Old Tin Scenic Byway Committee. Western Media Trip that I talked about. We do customer service seminars for the different hotels each year. The Kickstart program, Rural Leadership, we hosted some of them. And then different committees that are listed off to the side there. And then staff, we have the 3 full-time staff and then 2 that are part-time summer staff there. And then our board is listed below. So that's the end of my presentation. I'd answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions for Executive Director Thiel? Comments, questions?
Ms. Thiel, I think you do a wonderful job. I think it's interesting that you mentioned social media and Instagram, because I follow you or Dickinson as well as the North Dakota tourism, and I know their Indie Legendary hashtag has just skyrocketed in popularity. And I also think that, I don't know if people are aware how important marketing is to tourism, and I was really, really impressed when I saw the numbers from the Josh Jamal campaign.
Yes.
The return on investment was just, it was crazy. So I think you're doing a really great job, and I give props to you and your team. I know you guys worked really hard.
Thank you. Thanks.
Ms. Thiel, the hunter numbers that are down, was that anything that you guys can track? I mean, was it overall numbers down or just who was visiting your site?
I think a lot of it has been overall numbers. And some of that depends on weather, of course, for the hatches, for what they're finding out in the field. CRP has been a real factor in a lot of decreased numbers out here. When we started losing that enrollment into the program and took away a lot of the cover crop, that made a big difference in the amount of hunters that are coming out.
And you said you've seen a pickup on people asking for relocation packages. Have you seen an uptick in, I've noticed a lot more white trucks at the hotels.
Yeah, I think that's starting to increase also. But, you know, some of probably the situations we might that arise from that as far as our end of it for funding is that once they get into long-term contracts, then the city no longer, the state longer gets the tax from that after a 30-day stay. So,
And,
I mean, it's good for the hotels, it certainly is, but,
Are you planning to do any work with the DSU, the 100-year anniversary?
I would guess that we have. I'm sure that we'll be visiting with them for different
Okay.
ways that we can provide information and also use our social media for them.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Guess we'll move on into reports. Mr. Kessel?
Thank you, President Decker. The first report is the Southwest Water Annual Report. It has been included in your packet for your perusal. I don't intend to make any specific comments about the report itself.
I think we were each mailed one too, or
Yeah.
given one. So.
The next item then is the I-94 Business Loop MOU. This is a document that has resulted from some requests that were made on behalf of the city of Dickinson by planning and zoning and supported, I think, by city staff and others. So we were going down the path of designing a upgrade to the East Business Loop, and the 10th Avenue East intersection and the interstate intersection were kind of the bookends of that project. Throughout the design project, we had met 2 years prior with the director of the DOT to talk about this project and kind of some of the things that we were interested in. And one of those things was an urban section. What I mean by that is curb and gutter, essentially. The design that was coming to fruition did not include curb and gutter, and our Planning and Zoning Commission actually sent a letter to the DOT. President Decker signed that letter indicating that we'd like an urban section, or at least a hybrid urban section from 10th Avenue East to the interstate. So what that did is initiated a conversation. We had DOT staff here in the city. We negotiated and talked with them about making some improvements that didn't appear were going to be in their design. That section of road was overlaid about 2.5 years ago. So the pavement itself is in really good shape, and they predict that it should continue to be in good shape for at least another 7 to 10 years. And so knowing that we had good pavement and knowing that we wanted an urban section roadway out there, we started to negotiate with the DOT. So included in those negotiations were a shared use path on the north side of the road that will be lit, and as I mentioned, a hybrid urban section road. The discussion at 10th Avenue East was what should that intersection look like. We talked about roundabout. We've also talked about signals. That decision won't be made until a later date, but at the end of the day, they did commit to the hybrid urban section and the shared use path, along with the other upgrades and changes that they were going to do originally. This added about $2 million to the project itself, and so they requested that we delay that project until a 2021 construction. So what this MOU does is outlines for you their commitment that they're making with regard to that project, and then the delay that we would experience to take advantage of the overlay that was just completed not that long ago. All in all, I think it's a good idea. I think it's the right move. You don't get an opportunity to redo sections of roadway like this very often, especially if they're DOT. So whatever gets completed there will probably be there for the next 30 to 50 years. So yes, it'll postpone some construction, but I think we believe that it'll be better construction when it's complete. So Engineer Kubis was involved in this process from the beginning. I guess so was Public Works Director Zuroff. If either of them would like to make comments, I'd certainly ask them to provide it.
Any questions for Mr. Kubis or Mr. Kessel or Mr. Zuroff? I know I was part of this, and my concern was, were we going to tear this area up twice? And why would we do that? If we're going to do it, we'll just do it once and do it right, rather than put the people through tearing up that section of road twice. So I think it's a good agreement. So I guess there's no comments or questions, Mr. Kessel.
Good. Then we can move on then to the capital improvement project prioritization. This is a policy that we created in 2013, was approved by the City Commission at that time. The reason that we created that policy was because of the influx of developers and other demands upon city resources, and we were concerned that developers may think that the investments that we were making didn't further their cause, but further somebody else's cause. And so we needed a method to prioritize infrastructure projects, and so we came up with this policy. As I said, that was at a time when development was happening very, very quickly. We were the third and second fastest growing city in the United States, or small city in the United States, and things have changed a little bit since then. So we looked at this policy with a slightly different perspective. We reviewed it as an executive team, and the results of that review is some slight changes. And so I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Kubis or Ms. Marshik, and they'll go over the changes with you specifically.
Thank you, Mr. Kessel. I believe there was a slide for this one, but in general, like Mr. Kessel said, it would change our focus to the new growth which we needed. We built a lot of pipe on the outskirts of town in the past few years, and this would really bring it back, be more core focused. I know Ms. Marshik actually had a chance to go through the policy if she wanted to touch on some of the specific changes, and I believe it was more than a policy, it was a resolution that
Yes.
we'd be bringing forth a revised or new resolution.
Good evening, Commissioners. The policy was put into a resolution in 2013. After reviewing that, along with looking at our current CIP projects, we decided that it would be a good time to revisit this policy before we go through and prioritize the upcoming projects. And so we got together and discussed some of those points. We had, the first couple were pretty good points, having to do with safety of the community as a whole, and we have some redlined draft changes that we would be happy to share with you. And then going forward, we'd like to get your input on those, and then we can bring back that resolution to hopefully adopt and approve to go forward with our prioritization of our upcoming projects. Do you have any questions about that policy for me?
I guess we need to see it.
Yeah.
It was kind of something that we hadn't thought about until we started looking at those projects and thought, hey, you know, things have changed here in the last few years since 2013, and we really need to take a look at how we're doing this prioritization. And so we have some suggestions in there, and we sure would like your input on those changes. So
If you could get us any information, that's always helpful.
yes,
So.
we will send that out. hence the report today and
Good.
not a resolution.
Sounds good.
Anything glaring in there, so we're not shocked when we do get that? Okay.
No.
All right. I don't think anybody has any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I'm sending that email to you, so you should have that before our commission meeting ends tonight. The only other item that I have a report on, and Ms. Carlson has a couple of them, is just a notice about the thank you notes that we've received based upon the grants that we have provided to the RSVP Plus and the Amadon Senior Center. Those were included with you. We actually received a couple more this week, so you'll probably see some more in the next City Commission agenda. With that, that would conclude my portion of the reports, and Ms. Carlson has a couple.
Thank you, Commissioners. My first report is on the S&P rating. This is the S&P Global Rating, and which is the Standards & Poor's financial report. And with that rating, it's established according to the sales and hospitality revenue, plus the historical and the forecasting of the economic conditions of the city. With that report that came out, this is for the year of 2016, the city did go down one notch. We went from an A- to a triple B+ rating on that. And the report was part of your packet, and if you have any questions on that, I'd try to answer that for you.
I think with the economic experience that we have now, from the A- to a triple B+ is still a very positive bond rating for the city. And in light of things picking up here and so on, I wouldn't be surprised if, they can adjust this every year?
Yes.
Every year.
Yes, sir.
So
We
I
can
would,
present
I don't know
that.
what the gap was between the A- and the triple B+, but I would think with a little bit of the increase that we're seeing now, that in 1 year, we might bounce back up to the triple A.
Oh, I
Or-
believe that will
yeah.
be a very true statement.
Mr. Steiner, they shared with us that the primary reason for the difference was the economy that we live in. So I think your comments are very apropos. You know, it's not something that we can have complete control over. It's a economy that's, you guys have lived it, you know that it's all about commodity pricing, whether that's oil or beef or wheat. So, but that was the primary reason for the change.
Yeah.
The other was some debt. And during the budget season, I have a plan that I'll be sharing with you to pay down debt quicker than our current schedule allows. So I think we'll address both of the issues, and as
Yep.
Ms. Carlson mentioned, we can petition for a review next year.
And I don't think it's anything abnormal what happened to us. I think it's the whole region.
Yeah, Commissioner Decker, we've actually maintained a slightly higher bond rating than some other cities in western North Dakota. I think it's also incumbent to say that our finances are strong, that this isn't a reflection of those, it's more a reflection again of the economy.
Correct.
Overall, it's pretty simple. I mean, less fees, less people, less revenue. Compile against what our current expenses are, and we're gonna see a little bit of drop like we did.
Any other questions for Mrs. Carlson on the bond rating? And you have item 5, budget policy.
Yes, in your packet, I have prepared a budget policy, and this is to, it's being presented and to be used as a guideline on the city for going for organizational goals and how we process our budget. And one of our goals is to employ applicable GFOA, or Government Finance Officers Associations, recommended budget practices, and it's to just enhance the whole budgeting function. So this is why we've started with the new budget policy, and I will be presenting other policies that will continue to improve our budget process. And I'm just giving this to you as a budget policy there and as a report for your review. And then next meeting, I'll be looking for a resolution, but an acceptance of the policy.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report unless anybody has
Any questions for Mrs. Carlson? And then we had one ad, right, Mr. Kessel? Or did you want to wait till engineering to?
Prioritization policy
Okay.
that we added, and we went through that.
Okay. And we're going to move down, let's see. We have nothing from fire or police tonight, nothing from engineering. Public Works, Mr. Prowse.
Good evening, Mr. President, Commissioners. Here tonight to talk to you about a roll-off truck bid and purchase that I'd like approved. May 17th, we opened up roll-off bids. There were 4 bids that were received. The first was a Peterbilt. It was for a chassis only at a cost of $106,991. International chassis with an Amplerol body came in at $162,085. Freightliner chassis with an Amplerol body came in at $166,272. And a Western Star chassis came in with an Amplerol body at $169,815. It's city staff's recommendation to go forward and purchase the Freightliner bid that came in third place at $166,272. The Peterbilt chassis was only for, or Peterbilt bid was only for a chassis, which did not include the body or the tarping system that we had requested for. And the international bid did not meet our automated tarping system requirements, and the body was not purchased through a North Dakota dealership, which we spelled out in our general specifications. This will be replacing a 2000 Sterling chassis with an Amplerol body that we have in our fleet right now, and is a 2017 capital purchase item.
All right, any questions for Mr. Prowse?
And we had budgeted 180,000 for this purchase?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Would look for a motion to approve this bid.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further questions? Comments? Not, we'll vote. Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Bid is approved. Next up, we have an annual street department report. Welcome.
Thank you. President Decker, Commission, thank you for the opportunity to present the 2016 annual report for the City of Dickinson Street and Fleet Department. The highlighted portions of this picture right here are the areas that were annexed into the city since 1986 to date. What I want to show you here is a graph of this department responsibilities. We've got year, we've got center line miles, we've got lane miles, we've got employees, and we got lane miles per employee. Since 2013, we have increased from 280 to 478, almost 200 miles increase in lane miles. With, in 2080, we had 10 men, or 413, I'm sorry. And 2016, we still have 10 men. Lane miles per man in 2013, 28. In 2016, 47.79. A huge increase with still 10 men. This is a picture of a tear out that we did on our street department with our street department employees and our equipment. We've taken that on this year. We do our own tear outs instead of hiring that out, which is a big savings. We have the equipment and it works well for us. Street department sweeping. I brought this up because I wanted to share with you a couple of things here. The big thing is that the fact that in 2015, our loads, total loads were 843 loads of sweepings. And in 2016, our loads were 407.75. Same with yards total, a decrease in 2016. This was caused by a decrease in sand that was put on the streets because we didn't have a lot of snow in 2015. Street repairs, paving and patching, 2016, repairs completed, cold mix, we used 10 tons, hot mix, we used 320 tons, patch rock, we used 346.14 tons, and in road oil, we used 11,775 gallons. Our patch rock is the rock that you see here that goes over the pothole, which is covered with the road oil. What that means is in 2015, we used 7,500 gallons of oil and 282 tons of patch rock. In 2016, we had an increase of 11,775 gallons of oil and 346 tons of gravel. That's a pretty good increase in patching our streets in the city of Dickinson.
Are you anticipating in 17 that number will increase again?
We're hoping so, yes. The street department also does road and gravel roads that we have to maintain in the city. This is a repair job that we did on Sundance Drive. It was a all gravel base, and then we came in with our millings, and we put the millings over the top of it. We compacted it in, gave it a good seal, and it's holding up well. The millings do a great job. Our mill and overlay crew, we have a small paver that we do a lot of our own patchwork with. Our own mill and overlay projects in the department crew out of the city in 2016, we did approximately 320 tons of asphalt. Total tons of asphalt and patchwork that we did in repairs was 3,140 hours, man hours. Now that consists of the asphalt patch, cold patch, and the dirt patch, the 3,000. We got to talk about our snow operations. Our snow operations in 2015, 2015, our snow control hours were 1,836 hours. In 2016, our snow and ice control hours were 3,487 hours, a big increase.
Quick question. Trying to place Sundance Drive.
Sundance Drive is up northeast, in the northeast corner of the city.
Northeast?
The northeast corner of the city. Bring it back, I can show you. Right up here.
Okay, thank you. That's going up radar base? Neil, that's going up radar base. Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is where we were at, right? Yep. Anyway, the increase, and this is the materials that were used to fight the storm. We used over 170,000 gallons of brine. Salt ice control for the brine was 1,200 ton. Beet juice, 1,200 gallon. Sand, 300 ton. Cutting edges, we used 110 edges. These are the edges that are used on our plows down here. Those are replaced probably about every 6-8 hours. Ice control hours, 1,213.5. Snow removal hours, 2,273.5 hours. In 2016, our total hours were 3,000 again, and then 18 and 15, so considerably amount more. We also, in 2016, we had our holiday storms, I call them. And I want to thank my crew for the great job that they did during and sacrifice they made from their families on Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day, because we were out quite a while fighting these storms. Anyway, these are subcontract costs. Subcontractors that we hired to help us fight the storm: Two's Construction, Wind Construction, Rock Solid, at a rate of $150 per hour. Hours that they all put in, for a total cost of $27,150 for the November 27th storm. Additional hours for the December 25th storm: Two's Construction, Wind again, Rock Solid. Cost, hours, total cost, for a total cost of 27 and 17 of $45,037.50. Now keep in mind, this is only through the end of December. This does not include January and February. This is a picture of one of the oldest pieces of equipment that the street department owns. And this was vital to fight this storm. I call it the Aussie. I know it's called an Oshkosh, but it blows that snow probably 100 feet in the air. This was a picture of the street that is on 21st Avenue between 21st and States and 30th. That's how bad the storm hit there. This is our trucks are equipped to handle brine tanks in the winter months, and then to be converted in the summer months to other applications. If you look at the roll-off here, this is a roll-off that was fabricated by the street employees with this tank mounted on it, and it's a brine truck. We use it to spray brine. This one has a compressor on it, and we can cover a couple of lanes with this one. These trucks are all gravity fed. They also spread brine for us. We can take this truck. Of course, this is a Tommy lift. We take it in. We take the tank off, and we convert this. We use this for summer use as well. This truck here is the truck that you saw with our Durapatcher. We take the tank off. We take the bar off, and we use that with our Durapatcher. So we use them for multiple uses. This is our material storage, the brine facilities building. We house salt, sand, Durapatch rock. The salt that you see here is used for our brine machine that comes from Morton. It produces the brine. We have the salt, sand, and Durapatch rock in this area here. We do a blend of salt and sand to help get traction with the sand and melt also. We do an 80-20 blend. And this is a picture of that roll-off that you just saw. That was producing we were making the roll-off right there, and we were putting the platform on it. Just another thing that we do in-house. This is a picture of our sweeping department for the leaves. This is our Johnson sweeper. This Johnson sweeper has a good range to it. It's a little quicker than the other sweepers, the Elgins. It does have its drawbacks as well, though. It covers long ranges, but it doesn't turn really well. So we use it in our number one routes, and it picks up the leaves really well. As you can see behind it, the leaves are picked up. We hauled a total of 231.75 loads of leaves for a man-hours of 101 hours. Other street department tasks. You tell me what that is? That's the underpass.
In-city kayak bond.
Yeah, that was the kayaks, yeah. I did kick the kayakers off there that day. Anyway, the street department handles another assortment of tasks. And we do some stormwater inlet cleaning for a total of 703 hours, 0.5. Gravel road maintenance, 1,191.5. Banners, flags, lights, hanging and taking down for 372 hours. Right-of-way maintenance, mowing, whatever, trash pickup, additional 215 hours, and then training. We also do the sign and striping. This is a good picture of Dee and her crew out there repairing a sign. They do a great job. Last year, she did over 1,100 lineal feet of telespa or post. The telespa is the post that you see right there. She did 297 lineal feet of anchors, which is the anchors down below that is pounded in the ground that the telespar sits in. She replaced 57 stop signs. She faded damage or new signs, she put up 71. Miscellaneous signs, she put up 136 for a total of 291 signs in 2016. Street striping, she also takes care of that. This is a picture here of the thermoplastic lines that we put in. The 6-inch line here. 6-inch line here, we did 1,917 lineal feet of that. The 8-inch line, we did a 457 lineal feet of that. The 24-inch bar that you see here, we put in 1,465 lineal feet of that. Left arrows, right arrows, and straight arrows, 6, 5, and 5. We also, Dee also took care of the curbs. She painted the curbs, were painted on 10th Avenue East of States Avenue, on Villard. In addition to that, downtown from Highway 22 to 3rd Avenue East, from Villard on 4th Street. This is a map of those areas that were painted last year, also from States on Villard to, or from 10th to States. Okay, that's our fleet department. That's our street department. This is our fleet department. I'm really proud of our fleet department. In 2016, I came in with a plan and I presented it to Jim Jablonski, and he made it better. And we took the plan and we hired a parts specialist, and she made it even better. The city of Dickinson, we maintain over 300 units in our fleet department. Cars, pickups, trucks, heavy equipment, tractors, attachments, etc. This is what I'm talking about. In 2015, the work orders that were done were 646 work orders. In 2016, we increased that by 994 work orders, an increase of 53.9%. I'm really proud of these guys. They did a great job. Of course, with that, you get an increase in cost. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. When you put out more work, it costs more. And in 2016, we increased at 36.1%. We increased from 2015 $161,204.14. 2016, 200,019, $256,080.
You have off the top of your head what our budget is for repair? What we budgeted?
I don't at this point.
Okay.
If I told you something, it might be a lie. I don't want to do that. This is a picture. The reason for this graph is snow equipment hours that I wanted to share with you. The bottom line here is in 2015, we used 2,146 hours on snow removal for these pieces of equipment. In 2016, we used 2,974, an increase of 828 hours. Now again, this does not include January and February. Equipment maintenance. Our street department also does a quick walk around the equipment before they take it out. They look for cracked hoses, fluids, belts, any leaks. They check the beacons, they check the mirrors, just a complete walk around before it goes out to make sure that it's good operating.
Now, does that count as a work order, or is that just PMCS?
No, that's just take it out. You got to do it. It's part of what you do.
Okay.
It's your first item of business. Another thing that we had a good increase in here is, I want to share this with you. This is the fuel usage in 2015 here. Gasoline, we used 61,915 gallons of gasoline. Diesel, we used 52,311 gallons. Dyed diesel, we used 8,853 gallons. And in DEF, we used 881 gallons. DEF is what's used for the catalytic converters in the new equipment and trucks. In 2016, that increased 62,174 gallons in gasoline. Diesel went down just a little bit, 52,166 gallons. I don't know why, but our dyed diesel went up 15,772 gallons from 8,000. That was a big portion of that was the storm. Our DEF went up as well, 1,012 gallons, for an increase in fuel of 6,864 gallons. What that means at the fuel pump, since we buy bulk fuel, our gasoline cost to us in bulk is $1.68 a gallon. At the pump, it's $2.29. Diesel, $1.89 a gallon. At the pump, $2.54. Dyed diesel, $1.73 a gallon. At the pump, $2.54 a gallon. DEF, $2.36 a gallon. At the pump, it's $2.80 a gallon. What that equated to was a savings for the street department of $80,000 last year. That's it. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Armendariz?
I just want to say thank you for all the pictures. I think it's so helpful in putting your story together and seeing really what you guys do every day. You know, we don't work without equipment or see a lot of those jobs being done. So thank you. I think it's extremely helpful with your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for all your hard work.
All right. We have nothing from planning or building and codes. Anything from commissioners? I just have one item. I received a call today from the Cub Scouts. They're holding a retreat out at Patterson Lake on Saturday, and I will not be able to make it, but I was seeing if anyone was going to be in town they want to do a flag presentation to a commission member. I know the police department's sending representatives, and so is fire. They would just like to see if one of us would be able to make it. And if you are, just contact me after the meeting. We'll set something up. I'll give you the times. Anything else? Mr. Kessel?
President Decker, just a reminder, we moved our July City Commission meetings. They're not the first and third Mondays. They're actually the second and fourth. Just a reminder, so July 10th will be our next City Commission meeting.
Anything else? Okay. Any public issues of city concern not on our agenda? If you're out in the audience, you want to come forward, state your name and your concern to the commission. Seeing no one from the public has any concerns, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.